I'm in Max. You are listening to Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. I'm in Max. Pursuing the RPG hobby with reckless abandon.
Why, hello. Welcome to Season 24, Episode 17 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
My name is Kimmy.
I'm Stork. It's Friday. Must be me.
Friday. We have a game convention coming up Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
LAX Hilton Hotel.
Already. Yep.
I scheduled the show.
Well done.
I have not scheduled my games.
Okay.
I think I might run Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
what else.
Okay.
I don't know what else I'm going to do.
Well, we'll be streaming, so one of them will have to be a streaming game.
Right. Hopefully the good one.
Yes, if there has to be a lesser good one.
Right. In this episode, Joe Crack writes in on player versus character knowledge, which we talked about last week. Last week? Week before? Whenever it was.
They blur together.
Jorn from Sweden writes in about sympathetic villains and villainous allies. Axel in the UK sends us a success story, and Eric in New Jersey sends us a horror story.
Ooh. Success and horror tonight. That's
Success
awesome.
and horror. But first, if you'd like to email us, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. We have a forum, happyjacksforum.com. That's happyjacksforum.com. And then we're on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and MeWe, happyjacksrpg, all one word. If you would like to watch the show live, go to happyjacks.org/live and watch us at 7 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah.
For this show.
For
we have
this
lots
show.
of APs as well.
Lots of APs.
Lots of things.
Oh, and by the way, for those of you who are fans of Demigod, which is the PBTA hack that Jason has been working on, he is going to enter into a Kickstarter starting on Tuesday, July 9th.
Yay!
So if you're listening to this in the recorded version of it, it might already, depending on when you listen to the show, it might be time to go check that out. You can go to demigodspbta.com, and he will have a link to the Kickstarter when it goes live.
It's very exciting.
I have pictures of him like a 1950s dad smoking cigarettes and walking
Oh,
around
yeah.
in a circle, like waiting
Right.
for the baby to arrive. Like, oh my god, it's going to go live.
yeah.
Oh my god, I haven't got everything done. I don't know how to change a diaper.
Very similar. And the cool thing about his Kickstarter is, like, the game is basically done.
Yeah.
And he's got art for it. Like, basically the only things he needs are someone to, like, really do the layout for the whole booklet. Because it's all written and all the art's done. It's, like, almost ready to go. So it's not like a Kickstarter where it's like, I have an idea for a thing. It's
We've
like,
memorized all the words, now we just have to get them in the right
Right,
order.
hold on.
Exactly.
I played it once and it didn't seem broken to me.
Yeah.
It seemed like everything was, and that was like a year ago.
Oh, he's done plenty of playtesting.
He's done
Yeah,
and lots of work, so
absolutely.
it should be good right out the gate.
Yeah, it's definitely good. It's so fun. It's one of my favorite systems.
I came up with a character concept the next time I play it. I want to play a scion of an elder god.
Nice.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be very good. That's what Samantha did in our very first campaign event.
Oh, really?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
so
right.
she was, oh my God, Eve, who was
It's had tentacles and she always wore long dresses.
Huh?
Yog
Slothoff?
Yeah,
Yes,
that
that's
was her divine parent. It was terrifying and somewhat charming in a way only Samantha can do.
Right.
You know, that does sum her up. She's terrifying and charming,
Yeah.
all in one redhead package.
I wonder how you would classify them, because you're kind of classified by it's a god of war or a god of this or a god of that. But.
Well, that's what you're classified by what the character is, your PC.
Okay.
So she was, I think, the arcane. So like
Okay.
it wrapped up and stuff. But I mean, you can decide I'm going to be god of war, and and each of the elder gods kind of have their own kind of. Do they?
Really?
Oh, okay.
No, they're too mysterious
Yeah.
to have anything.
Yeah.
They're just these horrible things that.
You get to make it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to go to the Deities and Demigods book and look up which each one of them was, because I'm sure they had a...
Gygax was not an authority on those.
No, it wasn't Gygax. In fact, I think they got... No, maybe it's the Moorcock stuff that got pulled out of Deities and Demigods. Yeah, I think
It was the Cthulhu stuff was not yet in public domain
Aha.
when they originally released that book.
Interesting.
Oops.
Yeah,
So very,
But it
very
is now.
exciting. Yeah.
that stuff is all public domain now.
Yeah. Very cool.
All right, so demigodspbta.com to go there for information, and when the Kickstarter goes live on Tuesday, there you go.
Yeah.
And we wish him the best of luck. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. Don't worry about it. Go to sleep. Get some sleep.
He'll sleep afterwards.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Is he doing a 30-day or is he doing like a 90-day or something?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I'm helping
It's
him.
90 days. He's gonna have a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
It's 90 days. 30 days we can survive.
Yeah.
All right. Sympathetic villains and villainous allies from Jorn in Sweden. Did I forget to put an email in, or did I put them in the wrong order? I put them in the wrong order.
Okay.
So, no, they're in the right order in the actual emails, but they weren't
Okay.
in the right order.
Do you want us to read them in the order you intended?
Yeah. Well, the order that's
There?
there
Okay.
is there.
Okay.
This is the order that the thing is in. That
Supposed
is
to be.
in this.
You're very professional.
Dear sympathetic hosts and all, if any, villainous guests, I'd love if any of you would read this letter with the voice of a pained Southern Baptist
yeah.
preacher.
You go, Stu. Yeah.
I'm glad I did not read this email.
I have been thinking about villains for a long time,
Amen.
and I have subscribed to the idea that villains need a plausible motivation for doing what they do.
Testify.
I'm going to futz with the level because
Okay.
I'm a little loud.
It's just because you're like using your bravado.
That's probably, that's too much. All right. All right.
Other than
That's an awesome joke that just popped into my head. Well, maybe not awesome, but to me, it's like Stu doesn't just have vibrato; he has bravado.
I got brovado.
Bravado.
bravado.
Other than being
That's
Other
fun.
than being
Bravado,
evil,
bro.
after all, and a character with motivation is about as flat.
Without-
Motives is about as flat as a communion wafer.
Communion wafer.
And if you just give them a drive and a reason, they instantly become much more interesting. Many of us do this in our games already, although not many enough. Did I hear an amen?
Amen.
All right. Then I happened to listen to episode 58 of Narrative Control's podcast. That is a fantastic podcast, by the way, titled Social Antagonists, and I was blinded by the light. All of a sudden, I knew what all my games, up until now, have been missing. Villains that your party are allied with, that they must live with. They are their boss at work, their commanding officer in the Corps, the bureaucrat that reluctantly pays out their bounties, their obnoxious cousin Ralphie, who fucking Ralphie, who won't ever leave well enough alone. They are the people that you hate, that love to rub your face in the dirt, but when push comes to shove, you are fighting on the same side as they. An example that immediately springs to mind: Star Trek DS9, Quark, the Ferengi bar owner, and Odo, the changeling security officer, are each other's social antagonists. By the way, the dynamic between those two is pretty much the saving grace of DS9. I think I might agree with that.
Yeah. I think so too.
Have any of you had this type of social antagonism in your games? I must confess that I have not. Not consciously, anyway. My drive to make the PCs the heroes in the story have probably precluded me from putting hostile friendlies in their path. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the matter. Best regards, and all my game nerdy love.
Aww.
Jorn from Sweden, a.k.a. Battlemat, on the forums.
Woohoo! That's a really good point.
I have a very important question
Uh-oh.
about this premise.
Okay.
How do you stop player characters from just murdering them?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's been one of the problems I've had with it. Like, I have designed characters that I kind of meant to be like this, like antagonistic, but not like evil.
Right.
But a lot of times the characters assume that they're the big bad guy.
And just kill them.
And like, I've had that happen.
Or secretly assassinate them.
Yes. Or plot against them, or like, it's just like, okay.
I'm trying to think of any one of our games where you've had like an NPC. I know that there's been some PC NPC like polar opposites that have butted heads.
Yeah.
A bunch, but I'm trying to think of, have you actively placed an NPC in the L5R game? Wasn't there a wasn't it was sort of a dick samurai that was helping us out at one point? He was just sort of, maybe not, maybe that was.
Well, there's
I don't remember.
Junichiro
What
from
would
the
you like
first game. Not his older brother,
Right.
not Renjiro.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But his older brother, he was kind of a prick.
Yeah.
And you guys weren't going to. I mean, not until it came to the big final battle, but you guys weren't going to move against him,
Right?
Because he's your daimyo's daimyo.
Yeah.
So that's probably about as close as I think I've gotten. There may have been some people. There are a couple of vampire characters
Who were assholes and we didn't like them. That's true. That's a really good example.
but there was no need to kill them.
Yeah. Or it would have been stupid to try and kill
Right.
them. And we'll put up with them being a dick. That's fine.
Right. I don't know if we've had any.
Prince who came into town.
I mean,
The new guy, the new
Yeah.
prince.
and these examples really aren't full-on villains; they're just annoyances, really. Like
They're not villains.
Like
They're-
their boss at work is just an annoyance. He's a dick,
Right.
And everybody has to hate their boss. It's kind
Well,
of
he's talking about them specifically being allies you don't like.
you don't
Yeah.
like, yeah.
I think there have been a lot of games where I've been in where it's like the king's vizier is an asshole, and it's very clear that he's not necessarily like your main target or the person that you're supposed to be fighting in the campaign, but he doesn't like that the king trusts you more than him or things
Right.
like that.
More like a rival. in
Yeah,
that case,
exactly.
Or
So
just even unpleasant, like the whiny prince who has to tell you have to report to him. He's all he's high maintenance, or the
Well, like
or somebody.
what's her name from Monsters Incorporated? Oh, Lebowski,
Oh, I got yeah, my eye Roz.
on you.
yeah.
Or in Booster Gold, who's his handler? Maxwell Lord.
Maxwell, yeah. He ended up being a big villain.
He did, but it took a long time for them to finally run out of ideas and make him a villain.
Spoilers, Wonder Woman murders him, and it's a little weird.
Yeah.
But this is a very interesting idea.
Yeah. I think that a lot of GMs are probably shy away from it a little bit because of what you were saying. Like it ends up becoming a red herring where people like assume that they're the bad guy.
Right.
Or they're just like set dressing. Where it's like, oh, the grumpy curmudgeon of a shopkeeper or something they run into.
Right.
So, but I think this could be definitely utilized to great effect, actually. And yeah, you're totally right about like Deep Space Nine. That's a great example of that. I think we do this a lot in our parties, though, in our games, which maybe is why GMs don't.
Because it's all within the player.
Right. Like, I
Right.
don't know if you, like, I mean, there's been times where, like, Stork and I, like, we're kind of famous for our characters, like, butting heads a bit. And, like, Pooja and my characters sometimes
Right.
butt heads a lot.
It's always you and someone else.
It's always me. I'm the problem. Yeah, I'm 100% the problem. I'm going to own that. So maybe that may be part of it too. It's like if you have a lot of that in your party, maybe introducing someone like this would like bring them together in mutual hatred of this person.
Right.
But you may also not want to introduce any more conflict than you already have.
Sure.
I kind of like the idea of just having a nebbish or a dickish NPC that sort of helps you out. It could be like we were out there before the podcast talking about Roscoe P. Coltrane, right?
Right.
Sort of the inept sheriff, right? And he reports to Boss Hogg, who's sort of an ineffectual mob boss, right? But people like that who. You could spin a story out of it at some point if you wanted to, right? But they start maybe as window dressing and they start maybe as flavor, and then as the game rolls on, you can add to it, and maybe something cool will come out of it. I do kind of like the idea of just planting those seeds and see what happens.
Right. Well, and having the players have to interact and like maybe work with them.
Right. And not every NPC you deal with should be or has to be a nice person. Especially like in the samurai court, there's going to be all sorts of like, "Hello, peasant," what are you doing here? And they could just treat you like, and they wouldn't maybe necessarily relay messages or relay incorrect messages.
Charles Emerson Winchester III.
Oh, there you go.
Perfect. He's probably the archetype of that character. He's the. Oh, that's a different kind of thing. That's more of a sitcom than a game with violence where people are, the killing is happening not on screen in MASH. But he's constantly their foil.
Yeah.
And even Frank Burns, too. It's sort of nebbish and control freaky and whiny. I mean, that would be a great NPC to have. Just sort of this whiny, I don't want to. You guys aren't following the rules.
I like the idea of using it for rivals too. Like, there's another adventuring partner that has also been hired for this same contract.
Right.
Good luck with that. Like, that happens a lot in books and movies and things like that. So that could definitely be used really well in an
And
RPG.
if your player characters decide they do want to kill this guy, then consequences. Hey, you got another story, you got another conflict that happens out of it too. I don't see anything wrong with that. I'm going to
Now you've got an adventure going, and the cops are looking for it.
right. Or because you killed the crown prince because he was an annoying little fuck. Now his dad, who is your boss, is mad at you,
Right.
or whatever.
All right.
I don't know. I like this.
I do too. Now, and of course, I've talked a lot about villains having to have some kind of motivation or something about them.
Yeah.
And it's especially, my favorite thing to do is to give them a motivation for doing the horrible things they're doing that the party can kind of identify with. Because that's always awesome. It's like, God, I understand why he's doing what he's doing. Shit.
Yeah.
But we have to kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I did an interesting thing in Wild Wild Talents, which I won't tell you how it ends because we literally just played the last episode yesterday.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. But,
It's up today.
yeah, I know, because you were amazing and put it up the
Yeah.
same. I was like, what is happening? This is amazing.
Because you guys were done before you got up out of bed.
That's true.
I had a day off.
Yeah, that's true. But I did a thing where the story is very much about balance between different powers. So there wasn't necessarily like one, like they had to find balance however they went about that. So it wasn't necessarily about finding one big bad. It's about if they fought something, they had to be careful that there was like equal, like it was distributed between these like cosmic powers they were dealing with. So that was kind of an interesting.
You don't want to kick the shit out of one of them because that will throw everything out of whack.
Right, then the other one gets too powerful. So it was kind of an interesting dynamic to see how they dealt with villains that weren't not necessarily villains, and also having to be very equitable with like how they dealt with everything. So it was interesting to see how that worked. But
It's always fun to throw those roadblocks in front of the players. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen. I have no idea how they're going to solve this. Let's see.
What was the big bad guy in the first season of Daredevil?
Kingpin?
Kingpin.
yeah,
He was a very sympathetic bad guy.
He's
was
always been.
the best part of that first season.
Yes.
The best. He nailed that character.
Yeah.
And you were just like,
Yeah.
I want to see a show about you
Right.
only. You are
Yep.
amazing and terrifying, and also I kind of want to give you a hug.
Vincent D'Onofrio, who is an actor's actor, and he's really good at playing those gray characters.
Yeah.
He's sort of made a living at it, and he nails it. He gets the motivations, and he's got that quiet rage, you could just smoldering right behind his eyes.
And you hear his backstory, and you're like, oh, I'd want to burn down civilization too.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, I want to help you. Oh, wait, no, I'm rooting for the other guy, I think, because he's good.
He really loved that character, just like a little behind the scenes stuff. He was very upset when Daredevil got canceled too, because I guess he was slated to come back and all. But you could tell how much he embraced it by how great he was in the role.
Oh, yeah. It was fantastic.
It's amazing. So good.
All right. Should we move on to the next
Sure.
email?
Yeah,
All
we
right.
can.
Thank you very much there, Jorn from
Yeah,
Sweden.
that's a good
I appreciate
topic.
the email.
Absolutely.
Player versus character knowledge from Joe Crack. This is sort of a piping in on a previous topic.
Yes, this is a reply. I would guess I will do it.
Right.
Player versus character knowledge from Joe Crack. Hey, y'all. Joe Crack here, and I loved hearing the discussion. I don't know if he actually says y'all like that, but it does say y'all in the
It
email.
does say
Duh.
Y apostrophe.
Joe Crack here, and I loved hearing the discussion. And like many dudes on the internet, I also have an opinion. Shock and surprise. What? Dudes on the
what?
internet have opinions? I didn't know. Now, obviously, Stu and the others have very strong opinions on this. And sure, it all comes down to personal preference. But here are my feelings on it all. If we agree that RPGs are a story told collaboratively, then to me, the players are not only the co-authors, but also the audience. For me, I think that it is best as a TV show, like a soap opera, because they always have fun, messy drama. So, in a show like that, the audience is aware that Gloria is engaged to Mark, but she's secretly in love with Maria.
Oh, has this been read before?
Yes, this is exactly. I read it last week.
I did it again.
You did it again. It's still a great
Oh, never
email.
mind. Okay, we'll just skip that then.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
is a great email.
Thank you for sending us that email again.
Again, I was going to say, wow, the words are exactly the same. All right.
Oh, but read his PS though, because his PS was marked
I see.
unread.
P.S. If you wanted to hear the rest of that email, go listen to the last episode.
Right,
Yeah, there
there
you
we
go.
go.
I read it just as well then.
It's a teaser. you were
Actually, I think
kicking ass, too.
your read was a little better last time.
Maybe. I think it was. P.S. Another reason I prefer knowing the secrets as a player at the table is if your character doesn't have any secrets in the plot going on, and the knowledge is if your character doesn't have any secret plots going on, and the knowledge isn't on the table, it can be boring as fuck watching other players go off and have secret meetings. That's a good point.
Yeah,
We
in
touched on
the
that a little
old
bit.
in the old days, but today, I mean, you've got Slack and text, and people can communicate very surreptitiously without having to.
And just the temptation to metagame. Even if you're not metagaming, you're thinking about metagaming, and then you're metagaming.
I'm right there with you.
See, we were like torn last week, but I am going to say, like, the thing about Slack and things like that. Okay, there was this poll on Twitter, which made me very angry this week. A poll on Twitter. It was like a tabletop RPG poll. I went off on it a little bit.
Oh, I think you mentioned a Polish person.
No.
Okay, right.
No, like that. No, like a poll, like voting. It was like,
wow.
what is the worst thing a person can do that you would kick them out of your game for?
Oh, I saw that. I accidentally clicked the wrong thing.
Everybody did, because it was dumb. Like, one of them, I don't remember what one of them was. One of them was not knowing the rules. One of them was being on your phone and playing video games during a game. One of them was inter-party conflict.
Creating inter-party conflict.
Right, and then one of them was cheating on dice rolls.
Right.
And when I looked at it, inter-party conflict was number one. Like, the thing that most people would kick you out for. I was like...
D&D people.
Right, but I'm like, that is like...
We have to kill that thing and take its stuff, not each other's.
Yeah, I was like, really? Like, you were okay with people playing video games at the table while you're gaming?
Right.
You're okay with people cheating on dice rolls more than inter-party conflict?
Oh, sure.
I was shocked. I was appalled.
Not knowing the rules.
Yeah, but I mean, there are people who are like very sensitive to like people using their devices during games. I'm not one of those people necessarily. I especially like tend to look up things for the game.
Right.
Especially if I'm playing either a historical thing or if I'm playing like modern teenagers, because I don't know a lot of like famous people. So if my character's gonna have a crush on
famous people.
yeah, current famous people. Well, anybody. I'm terrible with names.
Right.
So I'm like the guy from The Thing, and I can tell you like every movie they've ever been in and what they wore in all those movies, but I have no idea what their name is.
Right.
So I'm like Googling. I'm like, my character has a crush on
that
blah, blah,
guy.
blah. Yeah. But anyway, but yeah, people are very sensitive to that. So like, be careful with like.
They are.
Yeah, with Slack and stuff like that. I don't know.
I don't know. I think.
I mean, that's a table agreement we have. Like, Slack's fine, but
I think that playing video games and like to the point of being distracted.
Yeah.
That to me is the
That's
biggest.
I mean, looking something up on Wikipedia to get a fact right, or working a backstory, or slacking to somebody, or even quickly answering a text from your wife or whatever is not a big deal. But you're right. If they've actually like checked out of the game and are busy playing Candy Crush, no, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Right.
For me, it's the dice thing. Like as a GM, like we've talked about fudging dice rolls before, in like, and people have like strong opinions on that.
Sure.
But if you're a player and you're fucking lying about your dice rolls, like go fuck yourself. Like that's a bunch of bullshit.
Do that in my old gaming group.
Yeah.
Long time
It's
ago.
just the dumbest thing. I'm like, why? Like that just shows such disrespect on so many levels.
He'd do this. Crit.
It wasn't even done rolling.
who's he
And you
fooling?
snap it back. Nobody.
Well, we were playing in a living room. We weren't sitting around a table, so we're all kind of spread out all over the place. And he was sitting on the landing of the staircase, and he's got a box and he rolls the dice. Crit.
So ridiculous.
Well, he critted a lot.
Yeah, he did. Mm-hmm. One session, almost every time.
What?
How'd you finally bust him?
Striking. Huh.
Yeah.
Well, it was right after that game. Someone came up to me and said, because I mean, it was a big party. I mean, there was like 8 or 10 people in it. It was a groups game, and I think he probably only made 3 rolls that whole session, and they were spread out enough where you didn't necessarily catch on right away.
Oh.
Oh, you need the bubble up here.
Oh, I got one.
But he, someone had mentioned. Did you notice how many times he critted this last session? Like I wasn't really paying attention because there's like 10 players. It says, I don't think he didn't crit a roll.
Yeah.
Like, huh. So then we changed the seating arrangement the next game, and we put him so he's sitting next to someone who was
Always looking.
literally like watching the dice.
Yeah.
Guy's sweating.
It's so dumb.
All of a sudden, ooh, 16, too bad. He's called the numbers out for him.
Yeah.
It's a good solution.
And that was, I mean...
why play? Like,
I don't know. I don't know.
understand. I don't get that at all.
Well, because people are more goal-oriented than journey-oriented, and they want to win. And they don't want to let the players.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, think of like Adventure League or whatever, where they need to get
true.
through this thing, and they don't want to fail
And get all the stuff.
and get all the stuff
Yeah.
because they got to move on. And so when you're goal-oriented, you're like that. We need to get to the end of the dungeon alive, rather than
Right.
we have all this inter-party conflict. It's doubtful we'll even make it through the end of the dungeon without killing each other. That's a completely different game.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, I took us on a bit of a tangent there, but I've been.
Success story, Axel and Ook.
Oop.
You want to read this
story.
one since you didn't actually read the last one?
No, you can do it.
Oh, well, all right. Dear Happy Jacks crew, I have this group I've been playing with for 20 plus years now. We meet for exactly 1 week, one long weekend once every year, and then play from Thursday afternoon to Saturday night. GMing rotates. We've even had a few longer campaigns spanning 2 or 3 sessions equaling years. Wow. So a session equals a year. So it's a lot of game time compressed into very little real time. We start play after breakfast each day and only stop to cook and eat. Usually
Wow.
we wrap up each day by playing a card game to unwind a little. This sounds hard. This sounds really, really hard.
Depends how old he is.
I guess.
In your 20s and in your college days, we used to do stuff like that.
I guess. We'd pull all-nighters, but I can't imagine.
We'd have diplomacy games that would last literally all day. We'd get to some guy's house at 10 o'clock in the morning. We wouldn't be done until midnight.
Well, and if you're thinking we play games like a lot. We play games regularly. If you don't have a regular game, like one weekend a year.
Oh, yeah. It's like going to GameCon.
Yeah, exactly. Except you get to not have to be with a bunch of people you don't know.
For many of the group, this is their only time actually playing an RPG, once per year.
Wow.
We all, quote, grew up with traditional games, and while everyone is experienced enough to wrap their heads around any type of system, some of us have a harder time to just run with it, both on the player side and the GM side. Our games tend to be very well prepped, and sometimes more about the story and setting and less about the characters.
Well, you got a year to prep it.
yeah.
It's like, I'm going to run the game at the next weekend. Will you do this? Okay.
Yeah.
It's like all the stuff I did for the Call of Cthulhu thing. I've been making stuff for that since, January?
Yeah. You've been very excited for a very long time.
All right.
So to open everyone's mind a little, the time we played the session of 10 Candles after our main game, absolutely brilliant.
Right?
The look on everyone's face then told me how to hand the virtues, vices, there's a wrinkle in my page here, how to hand the virtues / vices to another player and building their characters with the two they now had. Priceless.
Oh, yeah.
Making
That's
sense
where
to
you
everything.
write down a virtue and vice, and then you hand one to the left and one to the right. So people aren't making their own character. They're making
Right.
they're making other people's characters.
The game itself, after a lot of questions along the lines of what's the point of playing when we're all going to die anyways, went down really well. So well, in fact, that we played another session a day later. For that one, we had even incorporated a visiting non-RPG friend who had an absolutely awesome first RPG experience in great atmosphere with simple rules and the same share of voice as all the experienced players around the table.
Harumph.
Big thanks to your podcast, as I learned about the game in your AP and would never have heard about it otherwise. I can absolutely recommend 10 Candles to anyone who just wants to have a fun game or to introduce people to the world of tabletop RPGs. I know horror stories are often funnier, so feel free to skip this email, as it is just a thank you to your podcast and some feedback about the game. Greetings from the Ook.
Thank you very much there, Axel, from the Ook.
I love that game.
It's
so
fun.
good.
And we got to thank Tomes for that, because he's the small game hunter. He went out there and finds these things, these little precious gems. And
Somewhere around here is my box, which is a 10
10
candles
candles.
game in a
Yeah,
a kit. It has
the kit.
candles, it has matches, it has the rule book, it has everything you need to play it.
Yeah.
I love things like that, where it's just a small, obscure game that nobody's ever heard of and comes in and can change your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and small games like that are starting to take more and more. I don't know if the market necessarily, but people are starting to notice them more and more.
Yeah.
So, which is great. Like, there's becoming like a real, there's always been independent games, but it's starting with like different sites now are like some of them are catering just to independent games like that. So it's becoming easier to find them. It's becoming easier for independent game creators to get it out there to people. Like it used to be, you just like pass it around at a convention.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
But there's always been a bunch of little small games out there, and it's sort of word of mouth. I'm thinking of Toon, which I've loved. Every time I played it, I've had a great time. There was one I played maybe almost 10 years ago called Cat, where your cats are the mystical protectors of the earth. Just kind of a cool concept.
Yeah.
It's a really simple game. It's like on 2 pages. There was one called Lady Blackbird,
Oh, yeah.
where everybody's got sort of set archetypes, and then it takes place on a spaceship. But however you play your archetype is completely random and up to you, and however you want to do it. And it's just, again, it all takes just like two pages to cover these games, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So these things have always sort of been around. It's just a matter of like someone finding them and then having the courage to play them, because sometimes you're like, what kind of games on 2 pages? It can't be that good.
Oh, there's a whole website of 1-page RPGs.
Yeah,
It's great.
So, well, there's Indie Game Press, which is a website that's completely dedicated to independent games like this. And you can get, like, we've played Companion's Tale, stuff like that. That's there.
Right.
And then also there's itch.com, itch.io. And that's like where I release Virgins and Vixens.
So it's not itch.com, it's itch.io.
Itch.io. It's
Itchy.io.
itchy.io. Yeah. It's not itch.io. Yeah, sorry.
itch.io.
Yeah, no. Yes, you're correct. I'm so used to adding the dot, whatever.
Right.
But that's where I release Virgins and Vixens, and there's actually a huge community on there that are all just doing like 1 to 10 page RPGs, and there's like game jams on there where they're like, okay, 72. It's like if you're like a film nerd, they have this 72-hour like film fest where you have 72 hours to make a movie about this theme or whatever it is. Well, they have very similar things, game jams on there, and it started out as a video game, an independent video game website. So people would be like, hey, I spent the weekend making this fun little Tetris knockoff, or and some of them are very in-depth, they're amazing. But there's starting to be a much bigger tabletop presence on there as well. And it's literally people who are like, hey, I wrote this little game. And some of them are fantastic.
Yeah.
And like if you're familiar with Critical Role at all, they played a game called Honey Heist, which is about bears trying to steal honey. And that's a game that's on. Yeah, that's a game that's on itch.io. And there's just all these little very short RPGs.
I wonder if that's the place where Tomes goes to find all of his weird little obscure games.
A lot of them, yeah. But also, again, Indie Game Press. That there's a ton of stuff on there that's all very similar like that too.
It kind of takes a paradigm shift for a lot of gamers to actually just sit around and drive across town, sit down and play a game that exists on 2 or 3 pieces of paper and trust that you're going to have a good time. We're so conditioned to doing a character gen that takes a long time and then investing a long time in a campaign. You know what? It's okay to just jump on in and try a tiny little game that lasts for 4 or 5 hours. Most game sessions last for that long anyway. You're going to have a good time. And if not, one of those 4 or 5 hours, you can play something else. But I think you're doing yourself a disservice by not checking these things out. And I'm guilty of that myself. I literally will look at just 2 pages like, what kind of game am I going to get out of this? Really? It's like this. It's not. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
So you defy your expectations and try it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, I just there isn't a specific page. There's a couple people who've done collections of 1-page RPGs that are literally a single piece of paper and everything is on that one sheet.
Yeah.
And there's actually a bunch of those.
I'm sorry, I was saying the website wrong. It's Indie Press Revolution.
Oh yeah. That's that was associated somehow with Hero Games.
Oh, maybe. But yeah, indiepressrevolution.com, they have a whole bunch of stuff. And you can get bigger stuff like masks and things like that there. But there's also a bunch of smaller games that I got A Quiet Year there, and a bunch of other stuff.
Quiet Year's been done by the same people that did 10 Candles, isn't it?
I think it is. It sounds familiar.
Oh, I can't remember the name of the website that it's from.
Yeah, maybe.
I have the hiccups.
Yes, you do.
Next email.
Next
Kimmy.
email. All right, now I'll read this
A
one.
horror story. I'm going to mute my mic.
A horror story from Eric in New Jersey. Hello, you glorious jackers. I figured since you needed emails, I would just try to keep...
It's like bears getting honey.
Yeah. Writing them until you guys said stop. I've mentioned a couple horror stories in the past. Fun little things like Karen and the Sexecutioner. Whoa.
I think I saw that film.
Yeah. GM ignores the party and role plays with his daughter who just wanted into the room. And the ever-glorious player attacks another for using a Hellraiser cube, a.k.a. damn death metal fans.
That just sort of reminds me of I'm Troy McClure. You might remember my horror stories, such as examples such as GM ignores party and plays with daughter, or player attacks another using Hellraiser cube, and other fine examples of horror stories.
Yes. Today I give you a tale that really doesn't have a villain, but is horrific still. We were enjoying a campaign of West End game Star Wars sometime back in the 90s. I had 2 players, let's call them Dave and Joe, who were playing brothers in this plucky group of Rebel Alliance operatives. I remember one guy blowing a force point to save the other and saying, "If you spend your force point to get laid, I'm going to kill you." Good times, good times. Well, one particular night, Dave and Joe's characters could not agree on the course of action. Dave said, "Brother, let's settle this the way we always do," and held out his arm to arm wrestle. Joe happily obliged, and they both went into the arm wrestle with gusto. The rest of us were entertained until we heard the sound of Joe's arm breaking.
Whoa!
Oh my God. Joe kept staring at his arm saying, "Oh God," over and over again. Well,
No shit.
Oh my God. Well, I very calmly flailed out my arms like Kermit the Frog on crack and started screaming, "Hospital! Hospital!" over and over again to one of the guys with the car. Well, they got Joe in the car into the hospital. He had indeed broken his arm. Oddly enough, the game never really picked up again after that. All I know is I can say I ran a game where someone broke a bone in the middle of the game. Not as horrific as Karen and the Executioner, but still pretty bad.
I missed the whole Karen's executioner story. I may have to go.
Anyway, it was a while ago. Anyway, I hope the story was entertaining. May the dice always roll in your favor. May your games continue to be diverse, and may you never get injured playing a tabletop RPG. Cheers, Eric from New Jersey.
Years ago, didn't we have a horror story
Oh
about a
my
guy
God.
that left the house? We were in Scandinavia. Left the house. He slipped and conked his head and passed out like in the snow. I seem to remember somebody like conked and they didn't find him for hours. But how do you break a bone? Arm wrestling.
doing arm
is that
wrestling.
Is that a thing?
I guess so. Like, it
How do you,
happens.
what do you? Wow.
I guess if the other person, like, I feel like, I don't know, that's like talent. That's like, I feel like that.
That's
Unless it's in your hand, if the guy's squeezing your hand so hard that it.
This is arm, though.
I'm wondering if this guy's got skeletal problems or something.
Yeah, I would maybe.
Like that pitcher who
Severe osteoporosis. Or
the
something.
pitcher who shattered his arm, and it turns out he had bone or something strange with his,
Right.
with
Oh,
his
wow.
bad brittle bones.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah, that didn't sound fun. And the fact that they could hear it, that's enough to make everybody go, yeah, right? Right
Yeah,
there.
that's awful.
Yep.
Right there.
Well, and also, like, how sad. Like, as a GM, you've got, like, this amazing moment. Everyone's, involved. They decide to, like, arm wrestle for real.
Right,
And
your eyes are like,
they're super into
two
it.
man enter, one man leaves.
Yeah.
Ah!
Yeah, and then it's like, oh God, you actually broke your arm. That's awful. That's so bad.
I'm trying to think. We had some physical violence once, maybe twice, where people had to be restrained or separated, but it didn't get into broken bones or anything. It was just a lot of shouting and puffing of chests, and it was like, all right. You know, I remember grabbing a guy. I'm like, we're going to go outside and cool down and all that stuff. But it wasn't. Yeah, well, we were all testosteroned out
Right.
15-year-olds, and spent together time in a room, and people were just sometimes people were just dicks. So.
Yeah. That's too bad because in this situation, like, neither one of them were being dicks either. Like,
Yeah.
it was literally
Right,
just
no.
like an accident. They were both really into it, getting along well. Wow.
And that, nowadays that I'm old, I can break a hand opening a door.
Yeah. Throw out your back.
Right.
Standing up.
Standing up.
Yep.
is,
I'm looking for another email.
okay.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay. That's okay.
And it's just, I was not logged into it.
You're not playing Candy Crush in the middle of our podcast?
I was planning on it. I was going to.
yeah.
No, I can.
I think that's a cool way to settle
Actually,
something.
Minecraft.
though.
I was going to play Minecraft.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I think that's a cool way to like deal with it though. That's really fun that they had like their set way of like determining what they do. Because I know we've all given that advice before, but especially when I'm talking about gaming with kids, like having a way to decide. Maybe not arm wrestling with kids, but I don't know. It's kind of fun. I really like that. They're like playing brothers. It's like, all right, we arm wrestle to decide if we can't decide. Like that's.
I wonder if you could
very cool.
design a game for jocks or something, or people that are very physically or kinesthetic, and then that instead of a dice randomizer, you have an arm wrestling.
An arm wrestling match every time?
Every time you needed to resolve a randomizer, you arm wrestle.
Would like that
Yeah.
game.
Maybe
That'd
you
be
make it
very
a
fun.
wrestling game.
Yeah.
There you go. There's my one sheet wrestling game, and the randomizer is an arm wrestle, and that's
Thumb wrestling.
or
That's
thumb
it.
wrestling. Excellent.
Yeah, that'd be very fun.
There it is. There you go. Put that with the Golden Lasso
Itch.io,
Media Empire.
Yeah. Thumb Wars. That'd be very good.
It is.
Yeah. That'd be a fun thing. Bill, one year for my birthday, gave me these little they're for your thumbs. They're little.
It's like a little.
They're little lightsabers.
Oh,
No,
okay.
it's like a little light, so
okay.
you could do like thumb.
like thumb wrestling
with
with
lightsabers. They
That's
were
cool.
very cool. Like one was the Jedi one was the Sith one, and you could do thumb war with like little lightsabers.
I think as a stocking stuffer once I got it's like I think you had a trigger on each side and you had a little hole and and it was like a cord. It's like
A thumb war ring.
Like a thumb war ring. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's very funny.
Okay, I'm not finding anything without reading through the whole thing. So.
That's okay.
That's all right.
Yeah. I thought that email looked a little bit familiar, but I'm like, oh no, he's just piping on something that we talked about last week.
replying.
Oh no,
Nope.
it's not the first time I've done that.
No,
it's
that's
part
okay.
of it. It's a flaw in my system.
But everything goes in a folder.
Everything gets in a folder.
I did want to talk to you a little bit about your Call of Cthulhu character generation.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, that's up now. I think it went up yesterday. Session 0 of Murmurs at the Abyss.
yes. Like, how did it go versus, like, kind of your expectations? It's interesting because, like, with Traveler, it seemed like we were doing a lot more on-the-fly stuff. It seems like people were much more prepared with their character concepts when they came to the table for Call of Cthulhu.
Well, you can be, because you can't in Traveler. You don't know what's going to happen.
True, that's
You
true.
say, when I grow up, I'm going to be a fireman. That's how Traveler works.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you? Oh, no, I didn't. I'm an office worker.
Grew up to be a drifter and a bum and
Right. I'm in prison.
But I was surprised with Call of Cthulhu because it did have, like, a lot of tables to roll on.
Yeah.
As far as
That's
like,
kind of optional, but yeah.
yeah,
For the background
we did. We kind of did half and half because some of us had like ideas we wanted for our characters already. But there's a lot of things where it's like you roll to have because there's a mechanic where you get sanity points and stuff back if you have like someone who you're connected with. You've got these like touchstone things. So they do have those tables that you roll on.
Yeah.
Like one time I didn't have anything in mind for who my touchstone person was, so I rolled and it ended up being another PC at the table. So that was kind of an interesting balance between like normal quote character creation and Traveler, where like everything's randomized. I
Right.
kind of liked that middle ground a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the way the system's set up, you don't really have to have your stats to be in a certain place to be able to pick any profession you want. The only thing it's going to affect is how many skill points you have to put in your skills. So you may not, your skill levels, if you pick a very academic career and your education is low, you're going to not have a lot of skill points to throw around. So it just means you're kind of a shitty professor, But you could still be. It doesn't matter.
There's a lot of those.
It doesn't matter if you're good at what you do.
No, it really doesn't. I mean, ultimately, you really want kind of a brainy nerd anyway. You really don't want anybody that's physically adept or even that agile, except maybe if you want to be a second story person. But you really need a bunch of educated people because there's a lot of like ancient lore that has to be deciphered.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, well, Kimmy's, you're playing the one shooty character.
Yeah.
They got one. They got one shooty character.
Yeah.
And she's you
Very
got
physical.
rifle and pistol.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it. Like I think excessively a lot of it. It was like 60 and 70%.
Right.
I don't want to miss.
Right.
But I'm probably going to die first.
Well,
You can be like Brendan Fraser in The Mummy, where you just keep shooting stuff while everybody else is running.
right.
It's kind of, yeah. Like she's like an adventurer and like kind of like a photographer around the world who comes back and writes very like articles about what I feel.
I
but
watched the
she's not
character,
sending-
Jen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's a cool character concept. It really is.
I figured one of us had to be able to climb a wall or jump something.
Right.
Somebody has to be able
Nobody
to kick
else
the
can.
door down just
Yeah.
in case.
Exactly. The most surprising thing to me is that no one made a student, and that's kind of what I was expecting.
That's
When people would make
interesting,
students, and almost everyone either made faculty or someone associated with faculty.
Yeah.
That to me was the most interesting thing.
It was interesting because it never even occurred to me to make a student. Like
I don't know why I assumed everyone would make students. I literally have no idea why, but for some reason that's just what popped in my head.
yeah, that's fascinating.
But
We always malign, Call of Cthulhu as being sort of, why would you want to make a shooty character? You don't want to shoot anything in Call of Cthulhu. But that's not always true. There are minions and things that you need to wade through. I mean, again, think of The Mummy, where you had, what was that guy's name, that slimy? Speaking of a NPC that was smarmy and... Lenny? Was it? What was it?
Oh, something
Lenny?
like
that.
Something
Yeah.
like that. Where he was all just sort of whiny and,
Right.
and everybody hated him. But, you have to shoot your way through these people. So you, in fact, need some of that skill. You can't just intellect them to death.
Right. Well, and the PCs don't know that you shouldn't shoot at things.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
You find that out the hard way.
Yeah, speaking
But,
of player character versus character knowledge.
And it really depends on what kind of game you're running too. I mean, you could have
Benny.
you can run a successful Benny.
Yeah, thank you, Char.
You can run a successful Call of Cthulhu game that's super shooty. It's not going to be as it's not going to have the tone of a real horror game necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I mean, you can totally do that and have a successful game.
In the 1920s, there was still some Wild West stuff in the West. You could actually have a Cthulhu and Cowboys.
Yeah.
I think there actually is for an earlier edition. I think there might be a book for that out there somewhere.
That's what my character's whole concept is like her father was like a trick shooting, like Wild West, like showman.
Annie Oakley, yeah.
Yeah, and so she grew up kind of on the circuit like that. So she's really great with guns, but now just travels the
What did you
world.
say, 1927?
1923.
1923. So yeah, it's the Buffalo Bills, Wild, all of that stuff was still around. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy. So it's funny, like how as GMs sometimes we set those expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to you about this actually like an hour ago. For my Wild Talents game, I was kind of, I don't know why, like I was like, okay, we're playing Wild Talents. They'll do like, I was expecting it to be more in the vein of like Wild West X-Men, like mutant powers.
Sure.
All of them picked magical shit. Every single one, independently of each other, when they came to the table for character creation, had ideas based on like magic.
Right.
Like Fey magic and ancient Mayan magic and like all these things. I was like, okay. Well, this is going to be different than I expected it to be.
Right.
I think it ended up a much more interesting campaign and a much more unique thing because of that. But it's just kind of interesting how, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a problem. I mean, people can write it and tell us if it's a problem that we just have at our tables. But I feel like a lot of times sitting down, since we game a lot, we have the kind of instinct to make a character that's different.
Yes.
So everyone probably sat there thinking, "Oh, she expects us to be like superpower mutants. I'll be the one magic character," and
Right.
then they all
did the same thing.
They all did the same thing. I wonder if that's like something that happens at our table, or if that's something that happens at lots of tables.
I personally, I wouldn't even occur to me to make a mutant cowboy. I would have thought, well, they already got my powers through magic, because for some reason you think mutants as futuristic and not necessarily in the past.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is someone who made a deal with the devil.
Right, magic.
Yeah. We had one of those.
Okay. But it's not. That wouldn't necessarily be a magical character, though.
No, but their powers are based
Supernatural
on
based.
supernatural kind of magic.
Well,
But yeah.
all superpowers are supernatural, aren't they?
Well, no, the mutant gene is like your gene gets.
Yeah, it's
turned
like
on.
scientific based.
Okay.
Like it's
Your
super
DNA.
powered, but
Right.
it's not supernatural. Yeah, so I don't know. That's kind of an interesting thing. So, and I don't know. Maybe that's the same thing. Like we all kind of were like, oh, I'll be the one older character when we were getting ready for.
And
Call of
everyone's
Cthulhu.
90,
And
right.
I'm not 90. I'm 30.
Right.
I'm still younger than I technically am.
Right.
When you say older
even
character,
technically.
people were playing 30-year-olds.
Fuck you.
No, I feel like Jim's character is like actually because he had like he lost some stats because of his age.
Oh yeah,
that he
his character
chose.
is like 60 or in the 60s.
I don't remember something, but it's old. It's definitely older.
Yeah, he came up with his whole character concept before he rolled one stat.
That asshole, like literally, I messaged him and he got at it. He's like, "All right, I'm gonna be in the group." Like an hour later, he messages us with this very detailed character concept. I've been like struggling for weeks.
He fled during the Russian Revolution.
Yeah.
And then ended up in Turkey and got arrested and spent the rest of the war in a Turkish prison.
He's just like you. You just had a character concept when we first started. You were like, well, I'm going to use this as a character concept. And it's like, we all stockpile these ideas. And when the Cthulhu gamer came around, he goes, oh, yeah, I can finally use my ex-Russian revolutionary.
Oh, and he's I don't know if we actually ever mentioned, he's also a rabbi.
Yes. This is super
He's
in-depth
a
concept.
Ashkenazi Jew.
Yeah.
What a great concept.
I don't even have a last name for my character.
I know.
And I've had weeks to think about it. I didn't decide on, I think Doris is my name, though?
Doris, yes.
I'm named after one
Doris
of...
the Explorer.
Yeah, Doris the Explorer.
And you didn't even remember that. I remember. I just want the character to like,
Yeah.
oh my god,
I didn't
I
even-
totally made Dora the Explorer.
I did. Well, because I picked the name because, like,
And you wanted to get a backpack?
well, that too. But
Rucksack.
yeah. But Kadave has an aunt who had, like, actually traveled the world, like, when she was older.
Her name was
And
Doris.
her name was Doris. So he's like, oh, you're like my Aunt Doris. I was like, yes, I am. So it's kind of, but yeah, she's Doris the Explorer's fucking name.
You have to get you a pet monkey.
I know.
Yeah.
A mean key. That would actually be kind of cool.
I know. It's very cute, actually. I may have like.
And if anyone ever does a portrait of the party, it'll be everyone and then Dora the Explorer, but a little taller.
Shorts and backpack.
Yeah.
A mappa.
Yeah. Maybe dying and bleeding, depending on how it ends. I don't know.
Right. All right. And the other thing I forgot was to have everyone roll up a backup character. Character creation's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Because if someone, again, in combat, I mean, you see how many hit points you have.
Yeah.
You don't have very many. I mean, a good character probably has 15 or 16.
Yeah.
And a rifle probably does 3d6 damage.
Yeah. So
So 1 or 2 shots with that, you're dead.
it wasn't too difficult. Like, I feel like you can't, like, traveler creation, as much fun as it is, I feel like you have to do that at the table.
Yeah.
Just because, I don't know, like, it just seemed to work better that way. But yeah, I feel like Call of Cthulhu, the new edition, what, 5th?
7th.
7th. Was simple enough that I do that separately
Yeah.
and not totally affect the
And
party
then
too
the
much.
thing is, the system, I mean, there have been some dice mechanic changes to the system that are pretty significant.
Yeah.
But the basic text of the game hasn't changed a whole lot.
Right.
So, and they've gotten, after 7 editions, they've gotten really good at explaining, here's how you make a character,
Yeah.
step by step by step by step. And it's very straightforward and very easy to figure out.
Yeah.
And it's the same with everything else. They have a really weird way of introducing combat. They start with fist to fist, like a punching fight.
Oh.
And they say, here's how you do a punching fight. Here's how you add weapons.
So they start with unarmed combat. That's good. You don't have to go search for it. It's right there in the beginning.
Grappling rules.
And then it goes on to firearms, because there's a couple of very significant rules in firearms that I think make a lot of sense. And one of them is you get a bonus 40 or 50% to your dex if you're using a gun.
Huh?
So because it's a lot easier to go click than it is to swing a sword at someone
That's
and punch
true.
them.
I'm curious to see how this game unfolds, because when this game first dropped way back in the 80s, 70s, we tried it.
81,
we tried to
82,
play
I
it,
guess,
and we just couldn't grok it. Raiders of the Lost Ark had just come out, so everybody made archaeologists, and we all had whips, and we just didn't understand the failure and the embracing the darkness. And it was like when we went insane, we would be, we just couldn't figure it out.
Well,
and
I don't think there are very many teenagers out there who are going to look at Call of Cthulhu
right
and not play it as a sort of pulpy.
it's really hard,
Yeah.
and we just didn't really have an archetype. But now, after all these years of ruminating on it, you really want to play it like an Agatha Christie novel, like Murder on the Orient Express or something, where everybody's got a specialty, and then there's some small clue sets in emotion.
Right.
But it's not, it's not Raiders. You're not swinging from the rafters and jumping onto trains and stuff. There might be a train travel. I don't know. There might be some of that, but it's a really different way to picture how you're playing the game.
Yes.
As opposed, especially when you were a 15-year-old and your only other experience was Gamma World, Space Opera, Hero, and Loon
D&D.
Quest, maybe. Yeah, D&D.
Yeah. Well, and you have to be really careful with it too, because and Stu did a really great job of this. He wrote up like a whole kind of like one sheet about the system, because there are points where you lose agency for your character.
Yes.
So it was one of these things that a lot of people, even today, like aren't going to be comfortable with.
Yeah.
So it's like you lose agency sometimes. It does deal with really heavy things. Lines and veils, super creepy stuff.
And you're going to be ineffectual a lot of
Yeah.
the time. And people have a hard time not being good at something.
Right. Absolutely.
You're not going to be walking away from a corpse of Cthulhu with an explosion behind you.
That's
not going to happen.
Yeah.
Or even sometimes just dealing with the local constabulary. I mean,
yeah.
you're just not going to succeed.
Yeah. Well, and also the fact that you're right, you're not going to succeed, but also kind of like embracing the feel of it. Because a lot of us crack jokes and stuff when we get uncomfortable or end up in heavy situations.
And I noticed that you during Character Gen, you had a discussion about tone. I think did it make it on camera? Or
It
was
did,
Yes,
yeah,
it
yeah.
did.
Okay.
It did, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think
I
that's a
wasn't really
really-
enforcing it so much during Character Gen, because it's Character Gen.
Yeah, but we brought it up because it's a good thing to try and keep in mind for next time.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of us automatically do that. We get in a place, or when our character fails, we make a joke about it. And a lot of games, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But this game, like, you have to like lean into the discomfort of, oh, we're all gonna die. And
Right.
I think it's a really great note, and that really helps set the tone, I think, for the players and the GM, which is
Yeah.
like, come on, guys, this is some serious stuff, and it will actually impact the game if you take it seriously.
Yeah. And we had it like that. I'm so glad that you typed that up because we shared it with some people, and like some people were like, that doesn't sound like my jam. Like I don't want to play. Thanks, but I'm not. I'm gonna not. I won't go in for this game. I'll go in for something else. Which
I get, and that's fair. That's totally fair. I would
absolutely.
hate to wrangle someone into Call of Cthulhu and like 5 sessions in, they're like, this sucks.
Yeah.
And they're expecting some hippie game.
Yeah.
Or they're expecting raiders where they're going to be swinging in on the chandelier and saving people, and that's not necessarily going to happen.
No.
Yeah. Like I am very uncomfortable with horror movies generally. Playing Call of Cthulhu is a little bit different because I get to have some agency on what's happening.
Right.
But like and we're very clear with like our lines and veils sheet that you've put out and things like that. So it's like these are things that will not happen because they are lines. Here are things that may happen, but it'll be like fade to black moments. Those
Or
are
off-screen.
Or off screen. Those are our veils.
Not having read the new rules, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Is there a way to gain sanity back?
Yes,
I think in the
absolutely,
original
yeah.
there wasn't. You
There
just
is.
lost it.
I don't know if there was or not. I don't remember.
I think you had to. It took
There's
like
actually-
years off
there's
camera
actually-
at a mental.
Well, I mean, there may be times when the party has someone who's lost enough sanity where they may need to be institutionalized.
Yeah.
And the game we may say, okay, he's going to be locked up for 3 months. Very briefly, what are you doing during those 3 months while he's locked up?
Yeah.
Assuming you're not all going to say screw Bob and leave. Assuming I'm going to stay and I'm going to research this, or I'm going to go over here and I'm going to try to get involved in this organization. So people give you some long-term goals.
Yeah.
So you can just fast forward 3 months and say, okay, Bob got out of the asylum. He's gained back 30 sanity points, and
it's Sane Asylum in the 20s. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
a lot of electroshock therapy.
Terrible. Yeah.
No, they had worse than electroshock therapy.
Oh yeah, they did.
So bad.
I know.
Yeah.
So it might be worse on his way out than when
Yeah.
he came in.
Oh, it can be.
Yeah.
You can lose sanity in an asylum.
I completely
But
understand.
one of the reasons that you do background stuff, you have like a treasured item, people you're close to, significant or meaningful places, these kind of things that you make for your character. Two things. One, as you lose sanity, and those things can become perverted. The GM can take your sheet and say, "Oh, your favorite Aunt Mabel. You're wondering if she's all right. Maybe there's something different about her. Something changed about her about 3 months ago, and you're not really sure what it was." So you just like write a little note or something to pervert those things. But when you're down sanity and you need to regain it, one of the things you can do is reconnect with the attachments in your background, and that gives you a role to be able to
cool.
to get more sanity back.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier with those charts. Like, there's like the touchstone person, there's like touchstone items. Like my character's thing is like a gun that my father left me that he used to use in shooting tricks, and he taught me to shoot on it. So like you can come up with them on your own, or you can use these cool tables, which did like very much like seem like travelers to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Which was really kind of a neat thing because it's like you roll. Oh, it's an item.
I love a little randomness in my character gen.
Yeah.
I totally do.
It really forces your creativity.
Yes.
Well, it just takes you places you never would have done, and then you have to
Yeah.
embrace it because that's what the dice fell. So
Right.
I mean, Traveler's the total extreme because it's completely random, but it's nice to have some of that where you're like, I have no idea, and it will force you to do things that you wouldn't have done had you just picked a thing.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think it'll be good. I think the there's one other thing I wanted to mention. I don't remember what it was. I don't remember now.
No.
Oh, by the way, I just looked up 1981 is when the original rules came
All
out.
right.
You know what? I'm interested to see now that they've come out with the new Call of Cthulhu and the art, the layout and the art design is just fantastic.
It's beautiful.
It's gorgeous. Now that they've done that, I wonder if they're going to go back to the basic role playing, their generic system, and give that the same kind of
The
overall.
BRP.
Very cool. Yeah.
I like that system.
That thing
It's
went
nice.
into print and gone.
Yeah.
I don't think they ever reprinted it. It was the one that had the what's the picture?
I have a
What's
copy
the,
of
the
it.
Da Vinci.
Yeah. The Vitruvian Man.
Oh,
Yeah. It has it looks like him on the cover.
Yeah, I have it.
But boy, you can't find it anymore.
Really?
It's out of
Yeah.
print. It's been out of print for a while. But it'd be. I hope they do because they did a really good job. I mean, here's the investigator's book. Just look at the quality of the printing and the artwork and the layout in this thing.
Like all the
It's
pages
just-
are color stuff.
It's just fantastic.
I like the little homage to the player's handbook.
Yes.
The AD&D player's
Yep.
handbook. That's cute for those of you playing along at home. It's,
Yeah.
it's very very similar.
But yeah, I mean, And I'll compare that to 6. I've got the 6th
Right.
edition book, and that looks like it came out in 1982.
Yeah. So good.
It's nice.
Yeah.
nice.
We should probably call it now.
Yeah.
All right. Where is it? Thank you for joining us for season 24, episode 17 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
My name is Kimmy.
And I have been Stork.
And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week, Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific time. Thank you very much. We'll leave this song.
Bye-bye.
We'll leave with this song.
This song. Yeah.
You wouldn't believe me anyway. So it's best I just don't say. I've lived 1,000 lives. I piloted 1,000 souls. I killed and fought and died just for a single role.
The preceding program has been a presentation of the Angry Folk Media Empire.